Hey everyone, Ripley with Bob's Watches. I'm here with Justin and Emily in the studio, and today we're talking all about starter watches. So we're going over 9 of our favorite watches for starting out a collection, and talking about why we like them and why they'd be a great place to start your journey.
If you guys haven't done so already, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of videos like this and fun ones that are coming. But before we dig into our starter watches, I think we know what time it is. It's a wrist check.
Yes.
Justin, what are you wearing today?
So I like to stay on theme, and with starter watches, I love Oris, but I'm going with the Big Crown Pro Pilot GMT, and this is actually the Reno Air Race Limited Edition.
Limited, yeah.
It's a cool watch. I really like wearing it. I like the size. I just think it looks good.
It looks great on you.
Yeah, I also think, it's not one of our picks, but I think it could be a great starter watch. So
hey,
it's a little bit on theme, yeah. What are you wearing today?
I love it. I've got just a gold ladies Datejust. Pretty simple,
Classic.
But nice and small. All right, Rip, what about you?
As usual, wearing my sub, 16610. It is what's on my wrist most of the days, so
Yeah, good choice.
It's on the wrist now.
We're talking about starter watches. We got 9.
Yeah, I feel like we should probably qualify what we mean by starter watches.
that'll
This
help.
is starter luxury watches.
Right.
If you want to see what it's like to wear a watch, you probably don't need to spend this much. You can go get one really cheaply to see if it's something that works with your daily routine and wardrobe. But as far as starter luxury watches, there's probably a few parameters we kind of want to sketch out. Probably one price point,
Sure.
If you have the means, go for it and get yourself a very lovely luxury watch to start if you can, but it may, if you're just starting out, it may not make sense to spend tens of thousands of dollars on it.
Yeah, it should
you
be
don't like it.
relatively less expensive, right? It's probably not going to be the most expensive watch you ever buy as your starter watch.
Not to mention the most complicated.
No, but in that same vein, as far as it should be something that can grow with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I think we've all made the mistake in whether it's equipment or electronics or whatever, where we've bought something and realized we immediately outgrew it. So I think part of it, getting a good starter watch, is getting one that meets your needs now, but also is going to have a place in your collection as it grows and gets nicer and more upscale watches in it. And then, like you were saying, functionality. I think that's probably a huge one. A starter watch is not the time to have the triple split perpetual calendar.
Simplicity
Yes,
a little bit,
extra
as much
points.
as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like versatility on my starter watch. I think it should be something that you can kind of, it's not too sporty or too dressy or too nichey anywhere. I think it should kind of be versatile where, you don't have a huge collection yet and you can kind of fit it onto your wrist in lots of occasions. So.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't the time to be going for a really unconventional dial color or this hyper avant-garde design.
Sure.
It might be a fantastic watch, but if it's your only watch and you're trying to figure out if you like watches and all of that, that's a really, really far end of the spectrum to start. So I think all the ones we have today kind of meet that
So
brief.
we each picked 3, right? And let's get into them. Let's start with the first 3 that we picked.
Absolutely. So you see we've got an Oris, a Grand Seiko, and a Breitling. All kind of stand alone on their own.
So I chose the Oris. One, I love Oris. I think Oris is a tremendous value, and I chose the Diver 65, which is such a classic watch.
Yep.
If you're into the kind of vintage feel and you like the vintage vibe without having to spend, almost, an undefined amount of money on some of these vintage watches, this is a great, it's a great option. It has the look, but it's really inexpensive.
Clean but sporty.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's kind of striking in and of itself.
It's really nice, and I think it's the least expensive watch that we have here today. So
yeah, I think it's impossible to have a conversation about entry level or kind of budget friendly luxury watches without mentioning Oris. And I think part of the Diver 65's strength is it's a relatively accessible design, but it's available in so many sizes, so many materials, configurations, and colors that you can find one that really fits your wrist right. So you're not trying to force a square peg through a round hole.
It meets you where you want it.
Yeah, you can really get one that kind of is an organic fit for your wardrobe
and it's really versatile. They're on leather, bracelets, tons of dial colors. They're really,
And most are priced about $1,000, maybe a little more pre-owned, and that's a really, really
Perfect
accessible
entry point.
price. Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually chose the Grand Seiko GMT. Yes, this is quartz, but honestly, it's just that simplicity factor, the functionality within it. Ripley, you kind of made a great point from a service standpoint. Not a lot to have to deal with for quite some time, huh?
Yeah, again, a lot of the intrigue in luxury watches is the mechanical nature of it, but as far as quartz, it's far more practical. And if you want a nice luxury watch that checks all the boxes as far as finishing, prestige, performance, but you don't want the day-to-day upkeep of, am I wearing it enough to keep it wound? Do I have to wind it? All of that. What's the daily-to-day variation as far as timekeeping? I think a Grand Seiko 9 of quartz is probably the best place to start. We're talking about a maximum deviation of a handful of seconds per year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So incredibly accurate, basically set it and forget it. But it is a Grand Seiko. It's beautifully finished, and really the best way to enjoy these is through a loop.
I love this choice. Like you said, it's a quartz. Personally, I like quartz, and if I'm going to get a quartz, let's be honest, I want a Grand Seiko.
Yeah.
I mean, they do it better
Creme de
than
la creme
anyone.
of quartz.
Exactly. But aside from that fact, I think it's just a gorgeous watch. Their fit and finish, and their grammar design, and just everything that makes this the Grand Seiko, the dial, the hands, all that. At the price point we're talking, I think it's just such a great choice for a starter
And
watch.
to even note the versatility of this one.
Yeah,
it has a
absolutely.
place in many of my days.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a second time zone in there, but you throw it on a leather strap, it's not going to really look out of place with a sport coat or anything like that. And then I think, again, as far as a starter watch, if it's your first watch and you're like, oh, I like wearing a watch, what's a nice part about it is as you buy other watches with mechanical movements, you can go let that sit for months or even years at a time, and you pick it up, it's still going to be running, it's still going to have the right time on it, and I think it's a watch that's perfectly meant to grow with you, and it's going to keep delivering because you can have $100,000
You guys make me feel
protect.
justified in my
Absolutely.
pick.
It was a good-
Thank
it was
you
a good
so
pick.
much.
I like that
What'd you
one.
get, Ripley?
So I just went for the Breitling. This isn't necessarily a watch I would pick for myself from just an aesthetic standpoint, but Breitling is one of the most well-known marquees. Grand Seiko, Oris, definitely enthusiast brands, but Breitling is one of those labels like Rolex or Omega where anyone walking through the mall has seen their stores. They know they make nice
It's a
watches.
household name.
But the thing, like the Navitimer, oh my God, that's like the least accessible design I can think of.
Yes.
So many numbers, so many scales, so much functionality. So if you want a Breitling, you like the vibe of the brand, you like the the general prestige. They make regular kind of time and date watches too. This uses a ETA movement, a Breitling caliber 17, so easy to service. And what I like about this is it's easy on the eyes as far as, you're not wondering what anything is. It's 3 hands and a date, simple Arabic numerals. But one thing I like about this one is it has a rotating bezel, so it doesn't have a numerical scale on it.
Yeah.
But the bezel does rotate, and there is that little bidirectionally friction, and it does have that little pip on there. So for those that find a dive bezel like on the Oris to be a little bit alienating, or they don't maybe understand what its purpose is, this is a great way to see, do you like the functionality of having a rotating bezel without committing to the aesthetic of a more busy and cluttered intentional
It's
design.
very unintrusive to add that little bit of functionality. If you want to simply time something really quicker, use it that way. Then it's there with, like you said, without being some crazy complication of a chronograph or a dive bezel or something.
I like the thoughtfulness in that one. That's great.
Yeah, and let's be clear, it isn't a dive watch, but most people wear dive watches, don't use them for diving. So if you want to see, do I like the aspect of a rotating bezel for parking meters, laundry timer, whatever. It's a great way to do it without shouting about it.
Yeah, I love it. I like Breitling as a brand, and like you said, some of like the Navitimer is exactly kind of what I think doesn't hit the starter watch category. It's really complicated to look at and to use. It's more expensive, so I think this is a great choice. Kind of, especially if you like that Breitling brand. Maybe you like the brand because your grandfather had one or whatever you like. Maybe you just like the aesthetic. I think this is a great jumping off point into Breitling.
Yeah, all 3 of these are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our second picks kind of follow the same thing.
Let's bring them in.
Let's start with you, Emily. What'd you pick for this one?
I'm a jewelry girl through and through, and I think especially for kind of kicking it off into the watch world, I actually chose the Cartier Tank. This is definitely kind of on a simpler end of the tanks as a whole. Quartz, again, I know it's kind of seemingly, what am I doing? But for me, this just is really simple, goes with a lot. Especially for me, I like to stack my jewelry. So this was just an easy pick for me. Definitely not your standard Rolex, and especially from a price point, pretty entry level.
That's good. And when you talk about you're more of a jewelry girl, this is great for someone who's not really into watches or not really into watches
I'm getting
yet,
into it,
but it's that kind of like in between step because it's very it's very like fashion forward and it mixes well with jewelry.
Especially now, my goodness.
Exactly, it's a super hot watch right now, but it also has that
history.
That history, and it's a very classic piece, and it's not just a jewelry piece. It really holds its own against luxury watches and the whole watch community. So I like it. This is a smaller one for. If you're a man and you want the the larger version, there's many different sizes and options. But I think as a whole, it's a good pick.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about it is that it's so distinctly Cartier. I think Cartier's might be the champion of asymmetric and non-conventional case shapes. And that things like this where it's, some variation of a rectangular square case is very inherently Cartier. But and so if you're looking for a Cartier with the Roman numerals and all that, it checks all the boxes, but it isn't, it is a variation of the Tank. It's not the classic, Tank Solo, or on a leather strap. So it's kind of one of those watches where it's undeniably a Cartier, but you're also, kind of a slightly different take on it, and also not committing to a giant price point.
It's legitimately entry Cartier to me. So
absolutely.
That was my pick.
Yeah, I like it. So I chose the Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra. I've talked about this before.
Beautiful.
I really like this line. I just think it's so versatile. I think it's an incredible value for the price. This is the day and date version, and I just think it's a really versatile watch. You get a lot for your money, and it's something that, like Ripley had said in the beginning, that can grow with you. You can look back on this watch, 30, 40 years later and be like, that was my first luxury watch. I still have it, and you're still happy about the choice. It's not like, oh, what was I thinking with this, this watch I bought back when, I was young or whatever. I feel like this one could live with you forever and be a great watch.
I'd be happy with this, especially as a solo.
Yeah, and since it is sort of that flex player that it's got ample water resistance, highly anti-magnetic, but it isn't a dive watch, it's not a racing chrono. This has a day and date feature, so which is, added functionality, which is great. But, when you're saying starter watch, for who? What are they doing? Are they living an active life? Are they in an office? What kind of, where are they living even? What kind of climate? And sight unseen with all those being unknowns, someone might not want a chronograph or a dive watch or what have you, but an Aqua Terra is kind of about as mass appealing as you can. It's a good looking watch, simple. You're not looking at it wondering what it does. You can put on a strap, it looks great and easy to dress up, leave it on the bracelet, or even like a NATO if you want to kind of dress it down and have something a bit more rugged. But it's kind of one of those watches that you can have it now and it will always be able to find a place in your life, whether that goes really, really adventurous or very kind of,
all phases of life.
Casual. Yeah, absolutely. And when you don't have a lot of watches to choose from, it's your first watch, or even you have a few watches, but this is your first luxury one, you can find an excuse to put it on your wrist almost all the time. If it's dressy, it's sporty, casual, whatever, you can easily put it on your wrist and feel great about it.
I'm kind of jealous of your pick.
And
I love it.
it's not a model that I see a lot of people reaching back to once they have a lot of watches. It's almost a watch I wish I bought earlier when I was starting out, because at this point, if I'm spending that much money, I'm kind of looking for more specific or intentional things to kind of fill out what I own. But I kind of wish I could go back and have that be like one of my first luxury watches, because I think it checks so many boxes, and I could easily see that sort of transforming as a person does throughout different stages of their career, their life, into parenthood. I think it's a really, really versatile watch, and I kind of went in the opposite direction of that. In the same way that that's kind of your go anywhere, do anything. I went sporty on my second pick with the Tudor Black Bay 58 in navy blue.
Very good choice for a sport. If you're really into that sport style, this is a great entry level.
Yeah, so I picked this one for a lot of the same reasons why someone might pick, the Oris. It checks a lot of those vintage dive watch design boxes. Doesn't cost six figures, but it's from Tudor, sibling company of Rolex. Undisputed brand as far as quality, easy to service, has Rolex's retail network as support. It's also one of those watches that you have a very, very high Patek collectors who own Black Bays in their, in their watch box, and so it's one of those watches that, whether it's the most expensive watch you own or the one you reach to when you're going to go work in the yard, it's going to do a really, really good job at however you choose to wear it. And honestly, just from a design finishing standpoint, it's really well done, and it's easy to get rid of if you don't like it. Obviously, you probably want to keep your starter watch with all the memories, but if you don't like it, you can sell this. You can barely lose any money, if any, on it. And
that's a good perspective.
You can easily kind of parlay it into the next piece, because it is a little more expensive. It's several $1,000s, and if ultimately you don't want a sports watch, it's an easy one to get rid of. You'll have easy number buyers.
I love it that it's timeless, right? Like this one is, like you said, you could have it your whole entire life and it will still be like that amazing Tudor, right? Like
Hell
it's
it's
just
simple, but
it's simple, it's sporty, it's a good choice. And this is the blue version, which I personally love. I mean,
absolutely.
Blue and watches are like, they hit it for me. So with the blue aluminum bezel, it's just done really well. I mean, I love everything about it.
Yeah, the blue's the preference of mine as well for the 58, and obviously it's a bit more casual, and my last watch choice is blue as well, but I think it's also one that you can wear. It's a Tudor. You can wear it in a bit more elevated occasions relatively easily.
And I like the fact that it's a time only. I mean, I know Shizzy Omega here with the day and date, which usually I really like it on this watch, but usually, especially on like a dive watch, I love a time only. Like with the Submariner, I think the time only is better than the date. It's just something about the simplicity of the dial, and I don't know. I just really love the look. So I think it's it's really classic on this one, and it's really nice.
Another round of great picks, you guys.
Yeah, these are good.
My third pick kind of took the vein of yours, but in a very, very different direction.
All right, let's see it.
So, I think part of the reason why you were drawn to the Cartier is it has such a distinct and identifiable aesthetic. It's, emblematic of the brand or iconic, or however you want to phrase it. If you want the recognizability of a luxury watch from a well-known marquee, I think a Panerai might have one of the most instantly recognizable. Size
You're not
alone,
lying about that.
Size alone, you can spot it across the room. And if you got a Luminor with the signature crown guard bridge, just the silhouette is enough to spot it, peg it down what it is. So I think if
even just by touch, you know exactly what this is.
Blindfold me, and with my foot, I could tell you it's a Luminor.
Yes.
And so if you want that, you want the instantly recognizable luxury watch, you like the bold kind of military informed aesthetic, you can get a base Luminor for I think just under $5,000 or thereabouts. Again, it's a Panerai, well-known company, large company, good retail network if you need it serviced. Also one that's easy to get rid of, but a very, very different aesthetic. So if this is what you're looking for, this would be the place to start. Simple, two-handed affair, hours, minutes, not even a running second, highly luminous dial, legible at a glance, can tell what it is across the room. You can tell the time what it is across the room. And if you like Panerai, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
If you're really into that Panerai aesthetic and you like the brand and you like the look, I mean, this is it. I'd say you really can't do better on an entry level.
The way I kind of verbalize this is somebody that knows exactly what their style is and that this fits in perfect for them.
And I mean, I like Panerai, and to me, this is everything I want from a Panerai. It's got that big Panerai case, the Luminor. Everyone can tell it's a Panerai. It's got that nice sandwich dial, very simple, big, bold. I mean, that's what I want in my Panerai. They have some great stuff. I love some of the Carbotechs and some of they have some crazy cool stuff. But to me, this is the classic Panerai, and if this is a starter watch, I would be 100% happy with it.
Yeah, no questions how to use it. There's an hour hand, a minute hand. The hardest thing on it is figuring out how to open the crown bridge.
All right, Justin, tell us a little about your pick.
Okay, so I went with another one of my favorite all-time watches, classic Moon watch.
Iconic.
Right? I mean, I feel like this is just such a great watch. It's so classic. If you don't own one, you probably should. Maybe I'm speaking a little aggressive there, but I mean, I think it's just, it's a great watch. And part of the reason that it gets the choice is it's not super expensive. It's relatively inexpensive compared to a lot of other stuff, and I doubt that there's a watch, a luxury watch anyway, that's as iconic at this price. I mean, there's the Submariners and the Daytonas and all these other, the Paddocks, and there's tons of super iconic watches, but I don't think any of them are as iconic at such a great deal as the classic Moon watch.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's one of those watches that you have a Moon watch, it's kind of this box to check within the collecting journey.
Yes.
I own one, and one of my favorite things about the Moon watch is that once you have one, you don't necessarily feel like you need to upgrade or get a different one.
Right.
I mean, people love the design because it's more or less stayed the same since the end of the 60s. And the one that they're selling today, granted it's got the 3861 coaxial and all that good stuff, it's still largely the same.
Right.
And if you want that, especially if you like the space heritage and all that, it's kind of one of those watches that whether it's your first watch or your final watch, you're still going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
If the Speedmaster is your vibe, there's some people where it's not, but I feel like even if you find out it's not, you kind of have to go down that rabbit hole a little bit,
Still
just
try
to
it out.
confirm. And I think what you mentioned, it's right up there with the Submariner as far as instantly recognizable, above reproach, amazing sport watch.
Into watches or not, people know exactly what a Submariner watch is.
It is literally a fraction of the price as far as, I think the cheapest subs these days are over 10 grand.
Yep,
and
climbing.
Even the most expensive classic steel Moon watches, excluding the 321s, are under 7, so.
Which is nice because that makes it so inviting still.
It does.
For the novice collector.
It is, and what's kind of cool about it is obviously you've got twice the number of hands as your standard three-hander, but there's more to you're able to grow with it and learn its functions, and then learn how to use its tachymeter bezel, and like, you know, oh, the minutes are here, the hours are here, and kind of grow with it.
There's almost like its own contained discoverability within the watch.
It
you know
is.
what I mean?
It almost begs you to learn more about
Yes.
it.
And
You're
it's
wondering
not
what these scales
crazy.
are.
If you are into that more complicated, you love chronographs. Like I'm one, I just love chronographs. I just like the way they look. So, you know, we did talk about how you want to kind of keep it a little on the simpler side. I think this is relatively simpler in terms of those watches. You know, it doesn't have, you know, any of these other crazy timers. It's not like, you know, a Yachtmaster 2 or, you know, a Skydwell or something.
There's not even a date on it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
The more comfortable you get, the more you can play with this one.
Exactly, and you can upgrade. So if you love the Speedmaster, if that's your thing, and they make some great Speedmasters, right? I mean, there's so many cool limited editions, and they go, you know, all the way up to precious metals and all kinds of, you know, really amazing designs that get, you know, really, really expensive. You can go down that road and still keep that classic moon watch and still not feel like you have to sell it because you've upgraded to the solid gold or, you know, the dark side of the moon or whatever.
So
you can kind of, it still has its place.
And one other thing about it and the Panerai is, you know, if you're starting out, straps are going to become a thing you stumble across, and you're going to have maybe one watch, maybe two watches, and then you're going to discover, oh, I can switch the straps out on them, and that's a whole other rabbit hole. And ideally, your first watch is something that you can put a strap on. The Speedmaster is almost universally regarded as a strap monster because it looks good on almost anything you put it on.
I love that.
And then Panerai, the whole culture with the Paneristi, with the straps, you go to the boutiques, you can kind of move your watch around to see what they different look like. It's a great watch to own if you want to go into that as well. And I think one of the biggest drawbacks of having your first or starter watch be one with an integrated bracelet is you might go, well, that looks cool. I didn't even know you could switch the straps. And if you aren't really able to do that, you're going to be looking for another watch. Emily, what'd you think?
Last but certainly not least.
So this is my entry Rolex. I chose the Oyster Perpetual. Kept it pretty neutral with the black dial, but honestly, for a steel watch that it just needs a place in kind of my initial collection, hands down, taking the OP. You could get a little crazy with dial colors, especially the latest models, but I kept it pretty chill with the black. I mean, this is something that kind of could be my daily.
Absolutely, I think it's great. Very similar to the Aqua Terra, and I think this actually surpasses it in versatility.
Yeah.
Where this is, I mean, you know, I've said I can't be a one-watch guy, but if I could, this one just might be it.
Yeah.
It's just such a good-looking watch, and on this one in particular, I love that black dial. I mean, it has that, you can kind of see when the light hits it, it's just that little subtle sunburst
they
on
call
there.
it bright black. It's different than the gloss black like on my sub.
Yes, it's not that enamel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which really allows for the versatility in attire, even in just kind of the phases of life, you know?
You're right, it can really dress it up if you need it to. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, most people don't start their collecting journey with a Rolex, especially not now when they're unavailable to retail level. But it is a watch that you're not going to immediately outgrow.
Right.
You know, most people, even if they have really extensive collections, aspire to own more Rolexes.
Sure.
And I think this is one of those ones where, again, not necessarily the one you're reaching into once you already have a bunch of Rolex, but one that you'd be really happy to already own once you start buying others.
Kind of initiate that investment of the collection as a whole, too, for me anyway.
Yeah, and I think if you are going to start with Rolex, the Oyster Perpetual is the only place to start.
Right.
Almost every single modern Rolex, including the one on my wrist, has the words Oyster Perpetual in its name. It's the Oyster Perpetual Submariner, the Oyster Perpetual Datejust. And that means it's got a self-winding movement and a waterproof oyster case. And those two functions have basically defined the Rolex brand since the early 30s. And if you want to buy into the heritage and get your feet wet with Rolex, get the model that has served as the backbone of the world's most famous luxury manufacturer for almost 100 years.
Sure. And I've always said it's an incredible value for Rolex. I mean, we're talking...
Especially if you get one at retail.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I know things are a little bit different now, right? Everyone's paying, you know, over retail prices for pretty much any Rolex. But in Rolex's catalog, the price you pay for this, I feel like it's just a great deal compared to all their, you know, their other watches in their line. It's an amazing watch, it does a lot. I think it's a great choice. I love the black dial. I love the look.
One other thing to mention, I think, if budget permitting, going with one of the newer models with the 3200 series movements like this one, is that for those that aren't maybe all that well versed with how a mechanical movement behaves, having a longer 70-hour power reserve and that superlative superlative chronometer certification of -2/+2, assuming they, if they don't wear it for a day, it's not going to be stopped on the
really
third
nice,
one.
yeah.
And timekeeping is going to be pretty on point. So you're not dealing with these wider tolerances of non-chronometer rated movements where they might lose dozens of seconds in a day, and that creates a negative initial impression into mechanical watches. So yeah, I think if you've got the cash to spend, this is a great option as well.
Yep.
We got some good choices here. Why don't we kind of do what we always do and
Fine-tune our solo pick.
Let's make a single pick here.
Single pick, I think one thing we should square away is we don't own any of the watches that we actually own. You're starting your collecting journey.
Yeah.
You get any of these.
You're at zero. What's your first
exactly.
gonna
You
be?
don't, it's got a blank slate.
What's your pick?
This one's a hard one for me. So honestly, I think if I was gonna buy one of these right now, given the watches I own, I'd go for the Tudor. I just love that watch. But if I didn't already own a Speedmaster, I would pick a Speedmaster.
It's so good.
I love the Speedmaster. I love owning a Speedmaster. It's kind of one of those watches that I often describe. It's a really satisfying ownership experience. You didn't spend a ton of money.
There's no guilt associated.
Yeah, I didn't spend a ton of money, but and at the same time, it's not like that gateway drug where I now want to own all the Speedmasters. I feel like I check that box. I love it. I wear it frequently, and I hear of those old guys who've owned the same Speedmaster from the 60s or 70s. They've worn it every day. It's beat up. Plexi crystal looks a mess, and it's awesome. It's awesome. It wears its damage so well that I'd love to be the one watch guy with the Speedy and just kind of take it off when I go in the water or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you guys?
Great pick. I'm between it, but I have to be honest with you. I think if I'm initiating my collection, this OP is basically calling my name. It's got that sheen to it. It's got the simplicity. It's pretty straightforward Rolex. And as far as being able to kind of just initiate my collection, this is my gateway to my obsession.
Addiction.
Yeah. But I have no shame in that, and I think I'm ready for kind of the jump off point here with the OP.
Yeah, especially into Rolex. I mean, if you're looking for that road, that's the one to do it with.
Natural for Emily to choose the most expensive watch.
Yes, so much. It's tough because I really do enjoy the quartz Grand Seiko, but I don't know. I think the wearability, as far as for my lifestyle, the OP, it makes sense for me.
It's a great choice. I am going to say I'm a tiny bit surprised you didn't choose the Cartier. I know what a fan you are of the Cartier. Maybe it's this particular one.
It is a little bit. I think even just some other Cartier models actually kind of send that for me, but I don't think it would be my first.
Gotcha.
I really don't. I think it would be my second, at most like third or fourth. Just kind of, I need something that has a little bit more wearability for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
OP's just calling my name.
Well, I'm going to support Ripley on this one and go with the Speedmaster as well. I'd like to bring another watch up here, but I just think the Speedmaster's too good. And if, like you said, if I didn't have any luxury watches and this is my first one, I would pick that Speedmaster and probably not think twice about it.
Yeah.
The one drawback people always talk about the Speedmaster is the lack of water resistance. And if I'm being totally honest, I'm wearing a sub. And it's probably not going to be the watch I reach for if I want to go spend a day in the water anyway. I just generally tend to gravitate towards less expensive watches where it gets ripped off my wrist in the surf, it's okay. So I don't, on one hand, do I wish the Speedmaster at 100 meters? For sure. Have I once gone swimming with my Speedmaster or needed more water resistance? I haven't flooded it and it's been in the water as well. So I think, I think that's...
And I'm with you on that one. To me, the water resistance, it's a nice feature. I'm not diving with my watches deep. And like you said, even if I'm going to the pool or something, I probably choose something else just because, I don't know, it's just my style. So I'm not really looking for a lot of water resistance in this watch, and it doesn't really bother me at all. I think it's really classic, and all the other times, the 99.999% of the times I'm out of the pool, I give it the nod.
Out of the pool, I'm just bathing my kids in the bathtub. But even at that point, I take nice care of my stuff.
Exactly.
So it comes off. It's not going in.
Exactly.
These are our picks. We're obviously super curious which watch you would start your collection with. If it boiled down to the first one you could pick, what is it? We want to know. Is it not here? Tell us in the comments. We definitely want to know.
Yeah, let us know if you don't have one. What is your first watch that you're looking for, saving for, whatever? Or if you could go back, maybe you have a huge collection and you could redo it all over again, what would your pick be?
Yeah, we definitely want to know. Well, this is all we've got for you guys today. Thanks so much. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. But until next time, we'll see you then.